Seattle has long had a reputation for being one of the best cities in America for bicycling. Thousands of Seattleites bicycle to work each day, and the number is growing. Bicycling is also one of the most popular recreational activities in our city. On any given day, you're likely to encounter commuters, bicycle messengers, people running errands, or cyclists out just enjoying our beautiful surroundings. Seattle is a city surrounded by hills and water. Getting around town inevitably means finding routes around, over, or through those natural barriers, as well as a few obstacles we've contributed to the landscape, like highways, heavily trafficked roads, and railroad tracks. Seattle enjoys its status as a bicycle-friendly city, and we're proud of the attention our facilities have been getting. Other cities are asking how we do it. We'd like to share with you what we've accomplished.
This is a video by the Seattle Engineering Department from around the year 1990. And what I found fascinating is that much of what is said in that little clip is very much the same today. My name is Nick. I talk about bikes and such, and today I want to share with you a glimpse of what the Emerald City has to offer. The good, the bad, and the beautiful. While the city is famous for its coffee culture, tech bros, grunge music, and the UFO-looking tower, it's actually a cycling powerhouse. I mean, I totally slagged off Seattle for making the top 10 cycling cities in North America. I was surprised to find it on this list. While I know it to be a place friendly to bike and scooter share programs, I didn't think the infrastructure and the modal share would cut the mustard, but here we are. But I am here to tell you that I was wrong. Seattle has not only been known as a cycling city, but to this day is continuing to make strides towards the very top in the continent. Boasting a rock-solid 3% modal share, which persisted through the pandemic, beautiful waterside paths, cross-down cycleways, and intersections that'll make a Dutch engineer blush. But in the spirit of honoring those who have made the city what it is, I'd like to take a quick tour of Seattle's cycling history. Beginning with the first bicycle, which arrived in Washington Territory on November 14th, 1879, and was prominently displayed in the window of a Seattle stationery and bookshop whose location is, ironically, now a surface parking lot. But as the bicycle developed, so did the prevalence of their riders. By the end of the 19th century, an estimated 12% of the city's population got on two wheels. And like many cities across the country, this led to a push for better roads. And even back then, a law was passed to create licenses and fees for cyclists to pay for the roads, but it was overturned after it was seen as unfair, considering horse and carriage riders were not required to pay a similar fee. Sound familiar? But as the car gained popularity into the 20th century, the bicycle was relegated to the status of a child's toy. That was until the late 60s, when environmental awareness began to take off, spurring advocacy groups like the Cascade Bicycle Club and Washington Bikes, who kickstarted a wave that led to Washington being named the most bike-friendly state in the nation. And to see what they've done, Hanoch from Best Side Cycling graciously agreed to take me around the city on a drizzly Tuesday morning. We met up at Lake Union Park, and he wasted no time showing me the good stuff as we headed straight into the core of the city.
All right, right turn at this next one. And this is an example of it is technically a neighborhood greenway, but we're like in the city, but there's a lot of new stuff right here. That's sort of cool.
This is an example of one of the many greenways through the city, characterized by sharrows, daylighting, occasional speed bumps, but perhaps most importantly, traffic diverters, aka modal filters, like this intersection here at Thomas and Dexter.
Would you say this is the best intersection in the city?
Probably the most complex one. I don't know about best. It is a bit overbuilt.
Compared to what used to be here, it went from nothing to flex posts to this. Medians prevent traffic from turning left or continuing straight onto the Greenway and allows two-stage turns for bikes separated from cars. We continued on the Greenway for a couple blocks, which brought us to one of my favorite places in the city, obviously hosting the iconic Space Needle, but also a science center, theaters, parks, museums, and one of, if not my favorite arenas in North America, Climate Pledge. It's subterranean, it's shaped like a giant Pizza Hut, it has a fresh, bright interior, hosts a hockey team named after a mythological sea monster, but most importantly, it's surrounded by a walkable neighborhood. A neighborhood that contains a Dick's Drive-In, no less. I mean, even across the street on top of a multi-level parking structure, you will find a community garden. Climate Pledge is simply one of the best urbanist arenas you can find, at least as a hockey fan.
They're generally very good at having leading lights here. Pretty much all the intersections here have leading lights. Yeah.
This is called an LPI, or leading pedestrian interval. It simply gives a head start to pedestrians so that they can be seen. Here, cyclists are allowed to treat that as a green and benefit from the extra safety. And this is in addition to another law that helps keep cyclists safe.
And then of course, here we do have the safety stop law, which is the Idaho stop, but that's what's passed in October 2020.
The safety stop, or Idaho stop, is to simply allow cyclists to treat a stop sign as a yield. It reduces collisions by helping cyclists stay out of drivers' blind spots when stopped and by spending less time in the intersection. And we exercised our right here many times.
So this is the Thomas Street, I think it's just called Pedestrian Bridge. It's a nice way to connect to probably one of the most scenic and flat trails around here. Called the...
Yo, watch your YouTube channel all the time.
Thanks, man. People really recognize the yellow Brompton, I think.
It wouldn't be the last time that happened, but we made it to the Elliot Bay Trail, a 5-mile route basically spanning the entire waterfront along downtown, and then some. It's an excellent north-south connection and hosts beautiful views of Puget Sound, where you'll quickly go from nature to urban, ending up somewhere that used to host a lot more cars. The Alaskan Way Viaduct was a double-decked freeway that ran for more than 2 miles along the waterfront, but it was torn down, restoring views and access with the help of the recently completed Overlook Walk. This is all very new and is being accompanied by a 2-way separated cycle track along the waterfront, though there is a potential hazard.
Yeah, people are complaining that they put like these like shin level metal rusty looking things, which they don't like.
We continued on into downtown, passing through Pioneer Square and finding one of the many separated cycle tracks in the city, experiencing a common problem when pairing bike lanes with a multi-lane one-way street.
Yeah, the main complaint about this one is that in the uphill directions, it's definitely timed towards like cars, the signaling, so you end up waiting at a lot of lights.
The light timings are optimized to give car traffic the green wave, typically traveling around 20 to 30 miles per hour, often leaving the slower cyclists to hit many reds along the way. But we made our way to Pike Place Market, coming across a block on Pike Street that previously hosted 2 lanes for cars, but is now for pedestrians and cyclists. Actually, it used to have rails running here.
The most random juxtaposition is that this is a tiny people street, but then Pike Place is still open to cars, and that's a hot topic, trying to make Pike Place car free, but doesn't look like that's happening soon.
It was a very quiet day, but it is odd that this street, in the biggest tourist hotspot in the city, isn't simply closed off to unauthorized vehicles. It seems like a no-brainer. But after tooling around the market, we went up to Pike Street towards Capitol Hill, and along the way we were met with a feature that seems relatively common in the city. While traveling straight along one-way streets, the bike lane occasionally switches sides, forcing you to wait at another light. It's not a big deal, but is yet another point of friction that is given to micromobility riders. Once we reached Capitol Hill, we came across an example of how much excess space we often have on our streets and a simple way to make them safer. And we headed back towards the core of the city where we saw several of the classic door zone bike lanes, hopefully making the way of the dodo bird. But the intersections they meet are adorned with some simple daylighting to keep pedestrians safe. And as we turned north back to where we started, we came across a somewhat common problem.
Watch for the Lime scooter.
Well, that's not where you're supposed to park it.
Whoever parked that one did a terrible job.
We regrettably didn't stop to move it out of the way. I caught the majority of this on my Insta360 X4, and while I love it for capturing shots that can be turned into, well, anything, where it really shines is as a dash cam. Well, not a dash cam, a handlebar cam. Attach it to your bike or helmet, turn it on, and forget it. It even has a dash cam mode that lets you set a predetermined amount of storage before it starts deleting old data, and looping mode, the same, but with a time limit. It's waterproof up to a depth of 10 meters and has a quick charging battery with which I've been able to get over 2 hours of continuous use. And I have to say, when somebody told me I can edit the videos on my phone, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But seriously, it's really good, and by good, I mean easy. The camera connects to your phone and boom, you're editing files with the swipes of your finger or even using your phone's gyro. It's honestly brilliant. Check the link below if you want to add one of these to your rides. Back to our starting point, we took to the Westlake Protected Bike Lane. Opened in 2016, the 1.2-mile lane provided a vital connection from the downtown core to the north side, and an apparent hotspot for 90s rom-com fans.
This was also where Sleepless in Seattle was filmed.
The floating house where Tom Hanks' character lived is here, and just across the street is where Meg Ryan parks her car before stalking him. In fact, we continued on the route she took, heading north on Westlake to cross the Fremont Bridge, which happens to be one of the busiest crossings for cyclists in the city. Now, we had 2 destinations in mind when heading here, one of which was the Burke-Gilman Trail. And to get a better idea of it, I reached out to Seattle bike blog editor and author of Biking Uphill in the Rain, Tom Fukuloro.
The Burke-Gilman Trail, which is like the rail trail project that put Seattle on the map because it was one of the first in the United States, and actually sort of set some of the precedents to allow rail trails to become adopted elsewhere. You know, that's always been the most popular place for biking in the city.
Perhaps the keen-eyed of you out there noticed it already, but when looking at the map of the trail, I noticed something and wondered, what the heck was going on here?
Heading east, it goes on forever and ever and ever, and it connects to other rail trails and just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And it's amazing. It's awesome. If you go west, there's the section where there's supposed to be a trail built in like the early 2000s, and it's been held up in court ever since.
This is the infamous missing link. It's a 1.4-mile gap in the Burke-Gilman Trail. And let me tell you, researching this, I opened a can of worms big enough to satiate the gulls lurking along the coast. A ramp jokingly installed after SDOT made a gravel pit to help make a notorious rail crossing safer in 2023. Seattle Bike Blog with dozens and dozens of articles dating back to September of 2010. News interviews with City Councilor Richard Conlon and member of the Friends of the Burke-Gilman Trail, Jim Jensen, from 2003. And there was even a 30-minute video by the engineering department released in the 90s titled 29 Reasons to Reject the Mayor's Plan to Build the Missing Link. Spoiler, the 29 reasons are almost entirely specific business complaints. This has been going on for nearly 30 years.
Public opinion has been consistent the entire time that people want them to build this trail. But there's a handful of wealthy businesses. For some reason, they have decided over their dead body, will there be a trail here? And they're willing to put in an absolutely irrational amount of money into lawyers. They figured out ways to just stall it in court. And, oh, you didn't like dot all your I's and cross all your T's in this part of your environmental impact statement. And like, just like all this like ridiculous stuff. And it's just been held up in court ever since. And the city has, to their discredit, somehow been incapable of winning these court cases. Even though like to the outside observer, it's absurd. Like, you know, they always get rejected for things that have nothing to do with any issue that any person actually cares about.
So that's it. Safety and environmental studies, lawsuits, appeals, overturning of appeals, and simply an unwillingness to compromise. As of 2024, the most likely outcome is for the alternate route to be built, with folks who ride along the preferred route continuing to bear the risk. And if you want to know more, you can watch my entire conversation with Tom in the link below. The second item we came here for was the newly finished neighborhood Greenway along 6th Avenue Northwest. These may not look like much, but when properly implemented can serve as safe and low-cost bike infrastructure that act as a backbone of a good network, which not only make riding across town safer and more enjoyable, the traffic calming nature of these bike routes makes for a better place to live by deterring speeding traffic down local streets. This is done with speed humps or cushions, daylighting, street markings and signage, but most importantly, modal filtering like we saw downtown. This Greenway hit most of the marks. But that was the last of the tour. We took off back towards downtown with the afternoon sun shining down, ending the ride where we started at Lake Union Park. And I have to say, this was very much a curated tour of the biking infrastructure in the city. It's not the same as living in a place and relying on it to get around, but I am still very impressed with what the city has built and the direction they continue to ride towards. And I'd like to finish the video by going back to the start. While that gem of a video, aggressively late 80s and early 90s, is entertaining in its own right, it has taught me a very important lesson, that the cycling revolution is nothing new. And what we have today is the product that those of the past have worked tirelessly to afford us. And what we can do to honor that work is to take that torch and move into the future so that we can leave the world a better place for those who come next. Be sure to check out Best Side Cycling if you want to see more of the Seattle cycling scene, or you can join my Patreon for free, where you can watch the entire tour with Hanoch, along with all of my YouTube content with no ads. And with that, my name is Nick. Thanks for watching.
Seattle has found that bicyclists can go just about anywhere, are economical and non-polluting, use little space, and are convenient for trips under 5 miles. We have also found that people will ride bicycles if given places to ride. This means making all streets and bridges bicycle-friendly and providing a comprehensive trail system. These improvements didn't happen by accident in Seattle. Without the tireless efforts of concerned citizens, little of the Seattle bicycle network would exist. Nearly every bicycle or pedestrian path in Seattle has come at the request of our citizens. And not just cyclists either. Other organizations like Open Space, environmental, and neighborhood groups have become involved in and supported the urban trail system.